would pick 20.
Okay, so I'll keep counting.
So you're doing 21 through 100.
Okay. Now, do you want me to drop them off earlier tomorrow, or is that what you want?
Yeah.
I'll bring the camera for that. Well, today, whoa, what's going on there?
Nothing. I'm just putting it into a different number.
Oh, I see. Thanks for telling me. Well, I'll tell you what. I'll put it back in where it was. So I can start this table rolling. Have any dead air here. So, hi.
No. It's good. Longer one.
It doesn't matter.
Yeah, it does. Yeah, but I don't want to have to switch it.
Oh, all right. Everything for you. That's right. Please the sound man. I think right at the bottom of that, all I need is to have a floating.
Plug into this.
What's that? This will do just fine. Well, as usual, things here at the Middle East upstairs are hectic in preparation for a show. I'm Francis DiMenno, and the tape you just saw dates from, about, let's see, close to 6 years ago. Wow, has it been that long? Yes, it has. And the Middle East has changed quite a bit, and yet the upstairs still remains the same smoky dive that we all remember so fondly back when the place first got its start. And, well, not much has changed for the upstairs except the blues jam has become a reggae jam, and the Wednesday evening open mic has become a Saturday afternoon comedy show. And the place has gone through infinite permutations throughout. And so I thought in this next half hour or so, I would, as a general introduction to the series of tapes that we will be shooting, or actually editing, that you'll be seeing over the next, I'm not very good with these figures in my head, I guess the next 20 weeks or so, on Cafe Cabaret and Noise Party. These next 6 months or so, you'll be seeing footage from 1988 and 1989 and a few shows from 1990 as well. The whole reason these tapes even exist is due to the work of one man who ought to be credited here today, and his name is Tom Blue. His actual name is Tom Newell, but he preferred to be, yeah, you know Tom, is he still around?
I think he left the country.
Yeah, he left the country for reasons unknown. He lost his driver's license, and once that happens, you're not even you're a non-person in this country. You're not even a real citizen. You don't have your national ID card. So yeah, he left the country. I'll bet he's in Spain, or maybe he's off the coast of Africa. Two places he was very fond of back when I knew him well. Anyway, yeah, what I used to do was, this was part of a project that the then House Booker, Billy Ruane, set into motion. As some of you might be aware, Billy Ruane opened this room up in January of 1988 for music. Heretofore, for about maybe 10 or 15 years previous, that's right, great, good ballpark estimate, 10 or 15 years, there had been music, but it was basically Arabic music and Greek music. It was Billy Ruane, in collaboration with Roger and Sue Miller, who had the idea of actually hosting rock and roll shows, but of course not your standard arena rock type shows, more or less, I don't know, artsy-fartsy type stuff. I guess the corollary to it is AS220 down in Providence today. They are now doing what the Middle East was doing back in 1988, which is not, of course, to say that they are like behind us by 6 years, but let's just say that they're carrying on the same tradition. And to a certain degree, upstairs in the Middle East, they are also carrying on that tradition of giving bands that are just starting out, which have something a little unusual to offer, a place to perform, a venue, so to speak. So Billy Ruane decided to document the shows. Initially, he hired an audio person to do tape recordings, and before too long, he had the somewhat brilliant idea of hiring people to do videotapes of the shows. And with that in mind, he had Tom Blue. Back then, there were only a few people who even owned video cameras, strange to say. Now, of course, 20% of the American population owns them, but of course they keep them in their closet until, the baby's first confirmation and things like that. They only crack it out for special occasions. But Tom Blue was a professional videographer, and so Billy Ruane had him come in, and videotape some shows. And then he had the idea that we might want to videotape these open mics. So with that in mind, we hired Tom Blue to do so. Basically, we charged a fee at the door back then, and the money went to the then host Jay Gaggs, and anything that was left over Tom Blue got. So Tom Blue shot these tapes on a shoestring, and he wasn't always very punctilious about close-ups and focusing and whatnot. But then again, looking over some of these tapes, I am surprised at the high quality of many of them. Some of them, of course, that you'll be seeing in the next dozens of weeks will be copies, and so the audio quality and the pictorial quality will not be of the same high standard as a master. However, in many cases, these are the only extant versions of the shows. I'm beginning to sound like an archivist here, as though they're like the Dead Sea Scrolls or something. And so we are faced with the alternative of either not showing them at all or showing them in somewhat grainy versions. Well, let's just say that it's better than shooting it directly off the television, as from time to time I have been forced to do. So anyway, Jeffrey Gagnon was the first host of this show, and he started it at a place called the 1369 Jazz Club in Inman Square in Cambridge. Maybe I should move around a little bit more. This talking head format is getting to be a drag. Okay, I love a parade. Oh, okay, now it's Paul Simon with his big operatic hit. I am just a poor boy. We walked off to look for America. Luciano Pavarotti laughing on the bars. Ha 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 ha, playing games with the faces. She said the man in the gabardine suit was a spy. Well, okay, so I jazzed it up a little bit. Now it's back to the boring old documentation that you are presumably watching this segment to learn more about. Is anybody out there watching? If they are, do like Elvis and shoot the television set if you don't like what you're seeing. And then go see my buddy over at Elvis TV. He specializes in repairing televisions that have been blown to pieces with a 45. So Jeffrey Gagnon, who was, I should say, a local man about town who is now settled in San Francisco, the only place where if you're a real weirdo, nobody will notice, because everybody in San Francisco is more or less, so it seems, an exile from somewhere else. Oh, he was too weird for Patuxent, but he fits right in with the San Francisco crowd. Yeah, oh boy, I was walking down Broadway in Cambridge and I noticed, much to my dismay, that the Broadway market was gone and a Starbucks coffee shop was there in its stead. And I smacked my head and said, ay, 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 what happened to that nice old man who had that nice little grocery store? One time I was working in that nice little grocery store trying to get people to sign a petition so that they could put an automatic telling machine in the market. And who should walk by but my old drama teacher? Don't interrupt me. And, okay, that's fine. Interrupt me all you want.
Thank you.
Good. Hey, good to see you, Cecil. We will, in fact, be showing Cecil's first anniversary reggae show in subsequent weeks on this footage that you'll be seeing on Cafe Cabaret and Noise Party. We will be showing little bits and pieces, so whenever we have some tape left over at the end of the segment, we will be showing you some of these reggae jam highlights. Anyway, I was in the old Broadway market, and who should walk by but my old playwriting teacher, Bill Alfred. To what state has this poor, unfortunate, former, very brilliant student of mine fallen that he's working at a temporary job at $4.25 an hour, humiliating, degrading himself? Well, anyway, what an incredible sidetrack. Jeffrey Gagnon was, in fact, the host of the open mic at the 1369 Jazz Club, which he called the Big Black Book. A great many of these shows that you'll be seeing over the next several weeks will, in fact, be the Big Black Book. Somewhere around the middle of 1989, Jeffrey Gagnon quit, although I'm getting a little bit ahead of my story, and it became Francis DiMenno's Cafe Cabaret, or FSAD's Cafe Cabaret, as it was popularly known by myself, if by nobody else. Jeffrey Gagnon started this open mic in, I think it was March 15th, 1988. And there are 1 or 2 videos of those shows, however, they're not available to me. If anybody out there happens to be watching and knows the whereabouts of these shows, I'd be very interested to have a copy of one of those videos. But of course, when people ask me for copies of my videos, I say, I don't have time for this. I'm a busy man, with no time to be sick, let alone make videos for you. But, and besides, I don't have the equipment. What do you want from me? Like, I'm making like $50,000 a year. I can invest in this expensive equipment. Ivan Illich, he put it down in Deschooling Society. He said, access to tools. So if somebody would like to give me a high quality dubbing deck, I'll make you as many copies as you like. Otherwise, forget it, Jack. I'm a busy man. So anyway, actually I'm a sick man with no time to be busy. Yeah, I wish this were all. I wish I could just like stop talking, but I haven't. As my uncle used to say, as we were working on his backyard, which was at a approximate 70-degree angle up a hill. Keep working, boys. You've barely scratched the surface. And it's like, gee, Uncle Bob is a witty man. Yes, sir. He used to also say, now you're cooking with gas. And my cousin Bob would say, Dad, you idiot! But Jeffrey Gagnon started the 1369 Jazz Club open mic. It was on Tuesday nights from about 6 p.m. till around 8 p.m. Then they had a band come in. Well, the 1369 closed down in August of 1988. And so, with some exhortation, I managed to get Jeffrey to move it over here at half his original salary, and we switched it to Wednesday nights, which back in 1988 were the new band nights, more or less, at the Middle East. When the Middle East first started out, they only had 2 nights of music, and those were Tuesdays and Wednesdays. Thursdays eventually they brought in some folk music from South America, and Fridays were Greek night and Saturdays were Arabic night. But now, of course, the Greeks and Arabs have been relegated to a single once-a-week slot in the basement. No, not in the basement, actually in the bakery, which is every Wednesday night, incidentally. Those of you who are wondering whether we're the only Arabic restaurant in town that offers music but not Arabic music, never fear. We have it in the bakery. Yes, this place has grown quite a bit since 1988. Originally, this was the only room. And then eventually we opened up the bakery. And initially, we didn't have musical offerings in the bakery, but back around 1991, we did in fact begin offering that sort of thing. And shortly thereafter, we also opened up the downstairs venue, which originally had a seating capacity of 325. Now it's more like 450 since we got a zoning variance from the nice people over at the Cambridge Housing Board. Thank you, Mr. Ken Reeves. Boy, this whole rent control thing's coming up now. I'm digressing again. And my former roommate, Andrew Morvay, who still lives in a rent-controlled apartment, said, Ken Reeves isn't helping anybody by being condescending to the Boston City Council. And, but anyway, thank you, Ken Reeves, for helping us get this zoning variance and for being such a good friend of the Middle East. Jeffrey moved it over here in August of 1988. And the first thing that came up was, how come you're not paying me $60 like the other guy was? Well, the other guy's out of business now. Maybe it was because he was paying bums like you $60 to do a 2-hour show. I'm a supreme artist. I ought to be getting $100 an hour for doing this show. Yeah, well, if you had been a basketball player, then maybe you'd be getting $100 per minute, but you're not and you won't, so there. And so we managed to get Jeffrey at bargain basement rates. Now, I was the person who collected the money at the door, and as you will note increasingly frequently in the weeks to come, I was also one of the co-hosts. Maybe I should talk a little bit about how totally venal and despicable and corruptly I behaved during the course of the original open mic at the Middle East. I would never let an opportunity to jump up on stage and say something go by, much like today, as a matter of fact. Maybe it was because I thought, gee, this is my only chance at fame. Hello, are you here for the open mic?
Yeah.
Well, and the beat goes on. We got 4 people here for the open mic. And so, as you can see, in the midst of death, we are in life. Or in the midst of life, we are in death. It depends on how well these performers do today. Yeah, well, I'll digress just a little bit more. Guys, ladies, isn't it tough? You get up there, you give them your best stuff. It killed over at, Joe Schmendrick's coffee house, and now I'm bombing. I'm down the toilet. I'm sucking. When you suck, you're going down the toilet, and when you're great, you're killing them. All this violence. Can't we have harmless comedy about little bunny rabbits and baby chicks and stuff, chocolate rabbits, and chocolate crucifixion scenes where you bite Pontius Pilate's head off? Take that, you sacrificed our Lord. So, while Jeffrey Gagnon wasn't very pleased at the prospect of working like a slave for peanuts, which seems to be endemic to working in the music and comedy business. You work like a slave for peanuts. Shut up! We're going to replace you with a circus element. He'll work 50 times harder for fewer peanuts. We're going to replace you comedians with an automatic teller machine. He's not very funny, but he works 24 hours a day and only costs $21,000 a year. You work 2 hours a day and you cost us, $5,000 a year. Doesn't add up, So that's what's happening in the comedy. It's becoming increasingly mechanical to a certain degree. Like, hey, Jerry Seinfeld, I can teach anybody to be a comedian. All you gotta do is make them take a class in logic and then have them screw it up. Yeah, that's what comedy is. All these comics, once they get successful, they think they have carte blanche to pontificate about what comedy is. But the very nature of comedy precludes any definitive statement as to what comedy is, including this one, as a matter of fact. I suppose you could, Dick Van Dyke laid it down, man, in the Dick Van Dyke Show. Dick Van Dyke's son was ashamed of him because he was a mere joke writer. So one day he appears at Show and Tell and says, I'll tell you what comedy is, and then he takes a pratfall, breaks his tailbone, has to take a couple of stiff drinks afterwards, becomes an alcoholic. But we know the rest of that story. And, he writes down on the blackboard, as I recall, comedy is the unexpected. I guess that's about the best definition of comedy I've heard in quite some time. Comedy is the unexpected. Yeah, that's funny, man. He dropped the mic. Well, that's hilarious. Whoa, ho, ho, ho. Yeah, there's nothing worse than people who are pretending to laugh because they feel sorry for you. Stop it, you guys. I know what you're doing. I did that one time. It was at the Holy City Zoo in San Francisco. There was a woman comedian, and she wasn't doing very well. She was saying stuff like, stuff from her life that she thought was a joke, but it was actually just a somewhat amusing and winsome anecdote about, my roommates. One way to really stop smoking is to move in with a bunch of people who don't smoke. That'll make you really stop smoking. Where's the laughs, What the fuck, man? I'm up here bleeding, dying, pouring out my heart to you, and you're not laughing, damn you! Anyway, this is a really long digression. Jeffrey Gagnon was really open to comedy. He had something of the raconteur about him. This big, bloated, bulging bully boy. Sort of, I don't know, he even said he had gone to Stitches and done his act and gone over very well. And, well, he was perhaps, some would say, an indifferent vocalist and not a particularly technically skilled guitarist either. But he did have a knack for improvisation and coming up with a melody right there. He knew his instrument very well, and you could give him a sheet of lyrics and he would improvise a song. He would improvise the chords, the structure, the chorus. He would add words, he would subtract words. He had a real talent for doing that. And as you'll be seeing on these tapes over the next few months or several months, depending on how you define few and several. Is few, is for a few or several? See? We don't know. These are one of those Eleusinian mysteries referred to in St. Augustine's City of God that we will never be able to thoroughly elucidate. Anyway, over the next several months, you will be seeing Jeffrey Gagnon as he attempts to create songs out of thin air. And that's what comedy is at its best. There I go again, defining comedy. Hi, I'm Bill Seinfeld. It's like, what about the So, yeah, that's the nice thing about comedy is that you can write something at, say, 11:30 a.m. on Saturday and come over here and perform it at, well, it's 1:30 now, let's say 1:45 on Saturday. And it's great, because when you're a playwright, hey, how you doing, Nabil? Good to see you. Now, if it weren't for this guy, we wouldn't have this incredibly rare archival footage, nor would I be shooting this show in the present tense. So, hey guys, you know, I don't often do this, except maybe once a day, but can we have a hand for the owner of the club? Come on. Yeah. That'll buy me a few extra weeks. But, yeah, good old Nabil. Nabil Sater and Joseph Sater, I've neglected to mention them up until now, but they were the persons who ran this restaurant and gave Billy Ruane his head of steam. Some will say they were insane to do so because Billy was kind of crazy, as you will see in the months to come, as occasionally Mr. Ruane will make his presence known when he doesn't like something that's going on. The very last tape in this series, which is number 57, is one in which Billy Ruane throws me off the stage. It is, in fact, the final tape in the series for a very good reason. After that time, the open mic went into hiatus for about a month or so, and somebody new took it over. We did show that footage of somebody new doing the open mic. Gee, I wish I could remember his name. Ray McNeese did the open mic for a month. But I still appeared. You see, I still managed to get my leering, mugging face on the tape, even though I was no longer running it. I was still the door person, you see. In fact, that's sort of the function I serve even today. On my resume, of course, you know what it says. Staff management liaison, media consultant. You know, oh, he's a doorman. He's a glorified bouncer. You know, give him a hypodermic needle full of adrenaline and just wind him up and set him loose for 3 hours. That's his job, you know. So that's right. Enough bad coffee to float a battleship. That's a good thing about this place. You won't starve, you know. I mean, it's a restaurant and it's a coffee house. So if you want to be nervous all the time, this is the place to work. And gee, I've almost used up all the time I had allotted to this sensitive, introspective rundown of the history of the footage that you are going to see. Well, Jeffrey was a sensitive person in many respects, and he always let performers do as long as they wanted within the constraints that he had to work with, which initially was about 2 hours. Some of the shows are in fact 90 minutes long, some of them run as long as 2 hours and 20 minutes. And of course, since his standard video cassette tape is 2 hours in length, I am forced to pad some of the footage. But never fear, I'm only selecting the very best padding for your viewing pleasure over the succeeding several months. If this sounds a bit like a valedictory, forget it. I don't even know what the word means, nor do I really know how to pronounce it, or whether I'm pronouncing it correctly or not, or whatever. Well, you know, the problem with this place is if you're an alcoholic, forget it. You'll be dead in 3 years. Your liver will swell up to the size of a balloon, and they'll be carting you out of here with a sheet over your head. And I had to stop drinking for that very reason. Unlimited access to all the pistachia and Courvoisier you can drink is not conducive to creativity. I recall one time sitting at the door, smoking a cigarette, drinking a pitcher of beer, and some old college chums of mine came by and said, "Look at him, he's drunk!" You know, "Oh my God, my mother didn't raise me for this world, you know, this crazy, crazy world." Gee, what would Mom say if she saw me now? "Frankie, Frankie," you know, "you never call, you never write," that sort of thing. Sorry, Mom, I will call and write. Honest, I will. She's off in Colorado now. My dad. "What's wrong with you? I never call, I never write. You never hear from me. What's wrong with you?" You know, that's the way my dad is. You know, he's just like, he'll go 3 or 4 years without calling or anything. He's just like, "Well, if you don't call me, I know you're all right." Gee, that saves you on the phone bills, doesn't it, Pops? You know? "Call me if you're in jail, but don't think I'm going to come and get you out." You know? that sort of thing. One time I was going down south to Atlanta, and he gave me this card that said, "Friend of the Deputy Sheriff of a.k.a. County, Pittsburgh." Like, that's gonna do me a lot of good if I get thrown in jail. Oh, a northerner, huh? Sweet! You know, I'm gonna make him squeal like a pig, you know, that sort of deal. You know, like, thanks, Dad, but no thanks. Actually, I did get arrested down in Georgia years later, and I did tell them that my father was the Deputy Sheriff of Pittsburgh. Isn't that great? The Deputy Sheriff of Pittsburgh. Woo-wee! Better leave this boy alone. Here you go, cake, ice cream, caviar, because your daddy's a policeman. You know, actually, I don't think policemen they don't really like it when a policeman's son gets into trouble. It puts him in a difficult moral dilemma. Just hit him around the kidneys where it won't show, you know? Don't crack his head open, you know? We wouldn't want his daddy getting steamed up. But, well, actually, I can't say that they mistreated me down in Georgia, although it was kind of frightening. Actually, I became a holding cell lawyer. I didn't have the wherewithal to become a penitentiary lawyer or a jailhouse lawyer. So what I did was I got on the phone and I helped people get bail bondsmen. Bail bondsmen, which I myself couldn't get since I lived 2,000 miles away. You know, what bail bondsman in his right mind would like guarantee bail to somebody? Oh, see, I'm out of here, Pops, but I forfeit $500. Hey, that's your problem, not mine. But $500 down here is a year's salary for me. Oh, sorry, pal. Yes, in fact, this whole jailhouse experience is what led Jeffrey Gagnon to write what was perhaps one of the greatest collaborations we ever did together, the song "Fight the Cops," which, when it was initially performed at the 1369, in the middle of the song, 3 cop cars appeared outside of the place, and the owner got very nervous all of a sudden. It was a song which was guaranteed to raise a few hackles, and it raised so many hackles that we had to get up next week and say that we love the cops. We have nothing against policemen, and we don't. You know, because policemen are just basically, occupations are in general just human traits magnified and made into a stereotype. For example, the human trait of curiosity, become a reporter. The human trait of authoritarianism, become a policeman. You know, so policemen are just basically there because there's a demand for them, and they're doing a job just like everybody else, like, you know, just like the SS and whatnot. I mean, no. I really don't want to get into this because, after all, my dad is a deputy sheriff of a.k.a. County. No, policemen are okay. It's those damn firemen that we gotta do something about. Yeah, really, nobody really complains about firemen that much. And that's what policemen do, except they're not putting out actual fires, they're putting out emotional fires. Now remember, if you die, the person that's going to notify your family is probably going to be some policeman. So remember that, and give the cop a smile, and he'll wonder what you're up to and follow you down the street and ask for some ID. And when you don't have it, you'll be in trouble. Can I see some ID? No, but you can see some ego, you know. Ho, 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 ho. So, I am running rapidly out of time, so I better get to the gist of this presentation, which is, Jeffrey Gagnon, he got tired of doing it, and I sort of forced him out. You know, I said, well, if you don't want to do it, I'm not going to pay you anymore, and rah, this and that. So he left. I took it over for a while. He came back. We did it together for a while, you know, and then he left again, and I've been doing it ever since, in one permutation or another. Initially, as you've seen on the footage that you just witnessed, as well as the footage which will be witnessed in the weeks to come, this was an open mic. Lots of folk musicians. You know, I mean, I don't want to sound bitter, but folk music is like the one genre which is every bit as oppressive as the injustices it is supposedly attempting to eradicate. Okay? So that's what I have to say about folk music. And blues. Oh, don't get me started about blues. You know, I was 22. I used to feel sorry for myself. I used to smoke unfiltered cigarettes and drink whiskey. You know, that's all very well and good, but when you get to be about 40, it gets a little bit old, you know? So, but I love the blues as long as there's other people doing it and I don't have to have any real part of it. I mean, I don't want to sit in the club and actually hear somebody screaming their lungs out about, you know, that Red Cross store. They give you some cans of corn and some cans of tripe, and I ain't going there no more. You know, singing about injustices that happened 50 years ago, and they're still bitching about it. You know, like, but I love the blues. Little boy weevil. Yeah, I love to woo my girlfriend with the blues. You can sell your cotton and you won't get half a cent, Lordy. You know, she loves that. You know, it's like, don't sing, don't sing. I can tell she loves it because that's what she says. My lady friend, my fiance, my inamorata. Sorry, I didn't intend to refer to her as a girl. A girl, you're a girl. Hey, girlie, what are you doing, huh, girlie? Well, that's about all the time I have for this. So I didn't cover everything that I wanted to, but I think perhaps I've said a little bit more than I might have otherwise, or perhaps even should have. And so I am hoping that if you are still tuning in, that you will tune in to the show every Monday and Wednesday and check out some of the things that went on here at the Middle East Cafe every Wednesday night. And as always, thank you for viewing. My name is Francis DiMenno, and we're going to have the comedians like applaud, even though what I'm saying has no direct bearing on them. Go ahead, let's have some applause. Yeah. All right, I'm Francis DiMenno, and